Welcome back to the podcast. We're going to have a guest, Jason Gardner. Don't want to give away too much, but it's going to be an awesome show, and I hope you enjoy it. Hope you get something out of it, and we will roll right into it. It's definitely an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
I just think that a lot of people can benefit from your story and what you went through physically, mentally to do the things that you did.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you just want to kind of introduce yourself, let everybody kind of know who you are, your background a little bit.
Okay. Hey, I'm Jason Gardner. I'm a retired SEAL Master Chief. I did 30 years in the SEAL teams. I got 9 deployments. 5 of those deployments are combat deployments. I retired from the Navy, and I'm a leadership instructor now with Echelon Front. So I go around doing workshops and speaking, basically talking about leadership and just my experiences with leadership. But here's the deal with leadership. It starts with you. And it starts with being a better person. And part of being a better person is your fitness and exercise and your overall health. Actually, that's a huge part of it, right? Because it ties into your mental health. It ties into really everything that you are as a person. So being concerned with fitness is huge part. And it's not something that's really apparent when people think that you're talking about leadership. Maybe you're telling other people what to do, but that's not what it's about. It's about fixing yourself first and setting that example for everyone you're leading, if you're doing it right anyway.
I like the point you made there with fitness transferring over into your mental state, your mental health, because we talk about that a lot on the podcast.
I mean, really, aside from getting carried away on leg day, there's really not any time where you don't feel better after working out, even though going into the workout, you might not feel like doing it. You don't feel good. Every time you finish that workout, you feel better.
Explain to people, like, what is a Master Chief?
So there's in the military, there are enlisted ranks and there are officer ranks. It's a different system. It's almost like a weird caste system. And so a Master Chief is an E9. It's the highest rank you can achieve as an enlisted man. Typically, the type of leadership that enlisted leadership is, it's that tactical level leadership, or like a foreman that's down there doing the job, has experience doing the job, coming up through the ranks. If I'm going to tell people what it's like for construction, done the job for a long time, has got a lot of experience, and is out there running the job in real time. Whereas officers quickly promote out of that role and they become, these executives that are in an office. And unfortunately, I promoted out of that actual foreman role later and became more executive levels of leadership, where I too was trapped in an office looking at a computer screen, answering emails, going to meetings, and dying slowly every day. However, I did find value in that job as well, because I didn't forget what it was like to be out there doing the job and try to do the best I could to represent the folks that were still doing the job out there. And there can be positions, times when you're a leader over people who have more experience than you, and that just, requires that you check your ego, you get their help, and you move forward.
What got you into, wanting to be in the military or wanting to be a Navy SEAL? Kind of tell us how that kind of all got going for you.
So my dad was in the Marine Corps. I grew up in a military family. From a very young age, I knew that's what I was going to do. I think I was 7, and I can remember the moment where I made the decision, because we were driving somewhere. It was raining heavily that day. I was looking out the window and I was really torn, because I love the outdoors. I really love nature. And at the time I, wanted to be like a scientist or, some kind of naturalist or something like that. And I also, this other part of me wanted to be in the military and be at that point of friction. And I just decided, that this is drawing me heavier in this direction. So I decided I'm going to do that first, and then later on in life, I'll go back to doing something outside and with animals. And that's what I did. So I was torn between the services, but I grew up on the beach. I swam, I played water polo. And so the maritime aspect of what the SEALs did as Naval Special Warfare really drew me. The fact that at the time in the 80s, they were still closed circuit, meaning or closed loop, meaning that once you went in the SEAL teams, you would never have to leave that community and go off and do something else in the Navy. Of course, unless of course you got in trouble. And so I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. Like at 15, I decided SEAL teams is what I'm going to do, and then I just started preparing for it from there.
What did you do to prepare for that? Was it a lot of physical stuff, or was it mental stuff, or a combination?
Yeah, I mean, it was all physical because I had no idea, and there's a lot of debate out there on how you get mentally tough. I've got some ideas on that. You know, I started running I got myself a set of jungle boots because you run everywhere in jungle boots, and I started doing runs in jungle boots, long swims, doing some cold exposure, and that was it. I knew what the test was to get in, so I started working on my pull-ups, my run time. And that the weak point for me being a swimmer was really the running. I to this day, I hate running. Just hate it. Now you won't see me running unless I'm running away from the police or toward a chocolate cake. So I get my cardio with another, other methods, but running's just bleh.
When did you actually go in and get into the military?
I enlisted right out of high school. So, we graduated in June. I worked the summer as a lifeguard. And then when everyone went back to school in September, I went to boot camp in the Navy. And then I did my boot camp. And then I went to my A school because everyone in the Navy has got to have a rating. That's basically your job. My A school was gunner's mate. And so I did that for 6 months. And while I was in boot camp, I screened to go to basic underwater demolition / SEAL training, which is our selection course. And I passed the test. So after A school, I got orders to basic underwater demolition SEAL training in Coronado, California. So I was in the Navy for about 8 months before I actually got to our selection course. And then, it's you wait like a month or two before you actually class up, and then it's 6 months through. And then check into a SEAL team. So it was about a year and a half, close, maybe just shy of 2 years before getting enlisting before I got to a SEAL team.
What was that selective training like? I mean, people probably hear about it and maybe see it on TV or whatever, but what was that actually like, your experience?
That was horrible. The saying that the only easy day was yesterday is true because it continues to get, really at 18, I've got a limited life experience. And so I wasn't used to staying up that long, being that cold, being that tired. It was a huge gut check. And then Hell Week, and that's the pretty famous portion of training. It's only the 6th week of training where they keep you up almost for a week straight. You get like 4 or 5 hours sleep during the whole week. And you're basically just cold and wet the entire time, going from one hammer session to the next. That's only the 6th week of training. And after that, you're just as cold, but now they're expecting you to actually pass tests and perform better and better and better. It's super difficult. And it is probably 90% mental and 10% physical. Like being able to do enough push-ups and run that hard, that's the easy portion. But being able to mentally deal with buds and it being 6 longs, that's the difficult part. And that's where, people run into problems. I've seen lots of Olympic quality level athletes just fold up and quit over things as little as failing a room inspection. It just comes down to them not being able to handle the stress. And that's what BUD/S is just applying as much stress as possible to see where you're going to crack. And it's not a genetic thing too, because there are people that I know that have been through, and quit and then come back later, made it through and been some of the best SEALs that I've ever known. So they don't know what it is that gets people through it. They've been studying it for a long time. And there you have it.
So do you think it's something that you just have to say, I'm going to do it no matter what? Or does even that thought get distorted in all that mental just strain?
My attitude was, I'm going to die here. I'd already told too many people where I grew up that's what I was going to do. And I just said, there's no way I'm going to go back and say, oh, I'm just not going to quit. So, victory or death. That's the way I looked at it. There was never any option, because if you give yourself, well, here's my way out, the yeah buts, man, that little door gets to be a pretty big door when you're teetering right on the edge of hypothermia and you're exhausted and you're wondering what the heck what am I doing? And honestly, there have been in the SEAL teams, I have been a lot more cold, a lot more tired, and a lot more miserable out on operations than I was in training. The difference kind of there is, it's that's easier to manage because there's not somebody yelling at you, and you flat out don't have the option to quit there in the real world.
Do you think the fact that it is a selective training and you can quit gives some people that out, and gives, if it were like, hey, you have to do this, there's no way you can't do this, do you think more people would just find it to push through, or do you think more people would just be like, I literally just can't do this? What do you think the situation is there?
No, the option to having the option to quit anytime, it really cuts a lot of people out. I bet you it's a huge number of people that would make it through if they thought they didn't have any option, as opposed, because it comes down to discipline and how much pain you're willing to endure to get something. And that's the crazy thing about the selection course. When I got there, I assumed that we would just be locked down for 6 months, right? No, you got weekends off most times, except for like when you're out at San Clemente Island, you got weekends off. You finish at the end of the day at 1700, as long as you don't have night evolutions, you can go do whatever you want till the next morning. And that's problematic, especially for an 18-year-old young man.
Right.
Because then you're out running around in town, getting into things, and then, you come back hungover the next morning, and you're going to pay for it in spades. But that's another one of those things where they just want to see, hey, how driven are you? How important is this to you? And, that's where the kind of foundation they want to build the whole organization on, as far as the SEAL teams.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's all up to you. They lay it out there for you. They say, it's going to be hard, it's going to be tough, and you're going to have some freedom here and there, but, it's up to you to kind of follow through if you really want it, or if you can kind of take it.
Yep. There's enough rope to hang yourself.
What kind of injury percentages did you see pop up? Like, not just, little things, but what were the bigger things that you saw just because of overuse and because of all that strain on the body?
Oh, stress fractures were huge. Guys getting injured was probably almost as much as people quitting. And, there's a lot of wear and tear that your body takes and that it's not used to. And some people's bodies just aren't able to keep up with it, and they flat out break. I had a really good friend. He would have made a great SEAL. The top of his femur broke. He had a stress fracture, went all the way through, and the top of his femur broke on a run. Horrible. And so, yeah, that's a huge, part of it. Yeah, unfortunately.
That is crazy. What kind of percentage, that you've seen throughout your experience that make it versus that try it?
Well, here's the thing. I think, so we have a 70% attrition rate of all the people that get to BUD/S historically. So 100 people walk through the front door, 70 of them aren't going to graduate. Now, if you back it up to everybody that even applies, the attrition rate is much higher. But that's just what I've seen coming through. And that is held strong despite the Navy's best efforts to target recruitment and do other things. And it's because of that intangible mental piece. Like the people that are washing out now are in fantastic shape and they're really prepared, but we haven't figured out how to select for, and I don't think they can select for it directly, is that the person that's able to deal with all the stress. And again, I got a caveat at that point in their lives, because there are guys that went through, dropped out, quit, and then came back later and crushed it and had an amazing career.
Do you think that has, it sounds like it does, but do you think that there is a correlation between guys that get some experience under their belt whether they've gone through it one time or not, do you think that experience under their belt really has that big of an effect? Or do you see some guys just come through, no experience, but they just have it in them and they crush it? Or
Yeah, I think that mental toughness is definitely, like leadership, is definitely something that you can train, and you do it by getting incremental pieces of pushing through uncomfortable situations to get the result that you want. That's one of those things that, like, maybe somebody that came through and has a moment of weakness at 3 a.m, they're freezing cold, they're like, what am I even doing here? And they get caught, and then they quit, and then maybe that haunts them. I know it haunts them. And then they use that as a driving force when they come back through to never quit again, or not quit moving forward. But the bottom line is, absolutely, life experience makes you better at things. And so the mental toughness thing is just about, it's just about pushing through hardship in incremental pieces. You start small and you work to big things, and then you can build it up. Definitely. I used to think that taking cold showers in preparation to go to buds was a waste of time because you're just cold more. And now I don't agree with that, because I know with my own, I've been experimenting with cold exposure, right, and getting into the 40 degree tank and building up the time that I can stay in the cold water. There's no way that the first time I got in that cold water, I could stay in it for 10 minutes. Negative. But after you get through that initial shock, losing your breath, the ice picks in your skin sensation, then you can power through it. And then eventually you can power through even that hesitation that you experience when you're on the edge of the cold tank and just going, oh, this is gonna suck. And you're just like, hey, I know this is going to be horrible, but I know how great I'm going to feel on the back end of this, and just hop right in with no hesitation whatsoever. That just comes over time with experience and building up to it incrementally.
Yeah, it sounds like almost like doing a rep of mental toughness. It's you don't go in the gym and just automatically bench 500 pounds or 250 pounds or whatever it is. You start low, you get the reps in, you build up your physical strength. It sounds like mental strength kind of works the same way. It's just a matter of
that's an awesome analogy. That's absolutely perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
So you went through buds, and you crushed it, you got through it. And
I didn't crush it. I made it through it.
Hey, if you make it through it, that's enough. That's what it's about. So, but you got through it, and so what was the next part? What was the next stage for you?
Then I went to jump school. After that, I checked into SEAL Team 5. That was back in '89. You get to a SEAL team. Now you're on another 6 months of probation. You start learning the volumes and volumes of other information that you need to know to be a SEAL that you don't get in buds. Got into a SEAL platoon. A SEAL platoon is a 16 to 18 man element. Started doing a workup in the late 80s, early 90s. Our workups for our deployments were a year long. Now they're, or as short as 9 months. Now they're a year and a half long. And then we went on what was supposed to be a 6-month deployment, but the Gulf War broke out, wound up being a 10-month deployment. Then I just got into that cycle. I stayed a SEAL. When you're at a SEAL team, you're either working in one of the departments in a SEAL team. Like when I wasn't in a platoon, I would be working in the ordnance department or back in the diving department, supporting all the SEAL platoons that were there. Back in those days, we didn't have a lot of support. We did our own support. Now we have a ton of support, and the SEAL teams are organized a little different. So I did 7 years at SEAL Team 5. 7 to 8 years is pretty much the max that you can do at a SEAL team before you just get burnt out. You're just burning your candle at both ends for so long. And then the other thing is Naval Special Warfare needs you in other places. So you need to go be an instructor on our selection course, or run some of the advanced training that we do, or be working in one of our units that we have deployed overseas to support the platoons that are deployed over there, or run the training for the platoons. And so, I cycled through a 30-year career of, grinding it out at a SEAL team, than coming back and running training. And I did a third of my career at our training detachment, which was really great. I mean, the bulk of my career, I was at Naval Special Warfare Group 1. So I was either at one of the SEAL teams or at our training detachment, not doing selection, but running the actual SEALs through the training that they do in order to prepare to deploy. The cool thing about that was it kept me current because tactics change pretty quickly because the enemy's updating how they're doing things on the battlefield, or the enemy is different, the missions change. So being at the training, being a place where you're involved with the training of SEAL platoons to go deploy keeps you current.
So what did you do to physically stay in shape? Was there like a regiment that they had people stay on, or was it like up to each individual to kind of do their own thing? Was it a group thing where everybody came together and did it together? How did that kind of work?
So we had command PTs where we would all PT together. PT is physical training. Outside of that, it was on you to stay in shape. A bunch of us in those days just lifted weights and worked on our beach muscles, which, doesn't translate well to the job all the time. But nowadays they've gotten a lot smarter. We've got trainers that work for, college sporting teams. They look very, very hard. And so if you look at the gym at a SEAL teams in the 90s versus a gym now, it's just tons of functional stuff now that we're doing. And then the job just itself, you have to be in good shape to be able to climb a ladder from the water level to maybe the second deck on a ship, or where you can actually hook it on to a container ship. That's a long climb. That takes it takes a lot of physical endurance to do a 4-hour dive underwater. You're doing lots of sprints possibly in combat, not a lot of long running, but you do a lot of long walks with lots of gear on. You can be carrying up to 70, 80 pounds of gear and walk 8 kilometers in a night. It's 3 portions. It's up to you. We do it together as a group, and then the job itself is constantly keeping you in shape because you've got to be in shape just to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of exciting to hear that the kind of the strength side of that is getting more programmed and getting more specialized to the job. It's good to definitely go in and like what you're doing, and I think that can kind of motivate guys to want to go do it. Whereas to now, maybe the downside is, hey, I don't really like doing it this way, but I have to do it. So maybe you don't get as much out of it.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely prepares you better for, obviously, the job you're going to be doing, and make you definitely, like you said, more functionally trained.
Sure, because they've greatly reduced the amount of injuries guys are sustaining just by looking at the training we're doing. And so when we go through our land warfare training and we're out in the desert and you're wearing body armor and helmet and we're doing our immediate action drills, that means when we're practicing to get ambushed by the enemy, which is the worst case scenario, you're down on the ground, you're shooting for like 15 seconds, and then you're up and you're doing a sprint to the next cover to shoot again. So here you are with all the gear on, up, down, up, down, up, down. Oh, great, down man next to me. Now I'm going to grab him and I'm going to do basically a sled pull across the desert, and then I'm down. So you're doing this all day long. And then the trainers are like, hey, guys, don't do a bunch of deadlifts while you're doing this. This is the time that during this block of training, you're much better served to be doing some stretching, some yoga, and recovering a little bit. Because honestly, we had guys getting rhabdo left and right before we really, because go do that all day and then hit the gym and just crush themselves. My last deployment in 2016-17, our physician's assistant and our medical people, they deployed with electrostim stuff, and they taught them dry needling before they went. They reduced the amount of drugs that they issued us by 80%.
Wow.
So all crazy. The Motrin, all the anti-inflammatories, all the guys get really hurt, now they need a Valium or something like that. Cut that by 80% by having some different techniques. scraping or the Grastons, all that. It was huge.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear that it's coming to a more holistic kind of approach rather than just a
Sure.
let's kind of go as hard as we can and wear these people out and we'll get new people in kind of approach.
Yeah, and they can't. It's too expensive to train a SEAL. So the smartest way to look at it from an economic standpoint is to get the most out of the people that you have. And in SOF a long time ago, they said our people are our number one asset, and that's special operations as a whole. That's Rangers, that's Green Berets, that's the Air Force special operation folks, and those of us in NSW. It's like our people are our number one asset. Gear, everything else comes behind that. That's not the framework that they used to have in the military. And it's with an all volunteer force and just looking at it from a smart perspective, it's the way to do it.
With that comes a lot of training, and I ran across a school called SEER School.
Yeah, I went to SEER School in 92 or 93. SEER is a 2-week course: survival, escape, resistance, and evasion. And so it's required that anyone's going to a combat zone or behind enemy lines in any manner has to go through it. And basically they teach you, for pilots, a lot of times they're not familiar with, doing stuff down on the dirt. So navigation and evasion techniques and field craft. And then they teach you how to act if you're taken a prisoner of war. So, what are expectations as a country for the individual, what your expectations for your behavior as a prisoner of war, and then expose you to being a prisoner of war, where they put you in a prison camp and they slap you around and they get you cold, wet, and miserable again. But it's that exposure to it. So when you experience it for real, it's not the first time you're seeing it, right?
Right.
And that's something that the military does very good, in that we have very good training regimens in getting people ready to go do things. And so when something crazy happens, it's not the first time they're seeing it.
Something like that's more of a training and educational thing. It's not really a thing you see guys like leave or drop out of. It's more of like a preparation.
I think you can get tossed out of it, because I almost got tossed out of it for being a smartass and killing a rattlesnake when they told us not to mess with rattlesnakes. But typically, no, there's not really an option to quit in there. There's a possibility that you could, but then you would go back to your unit. You'd have to leave your unit because you couldn't go behind enemy lines if you didn't complete it.
So what's the kind of the short story on the rattlesnake?
Oh, yeah, we were out there in the field, and this is when we were just out there, and they don't let you eat anything. And I was eating what lizards and grasshoppers I could come across, and some guys had a rattlesnake pinned in a bush, and so I went over there and killed it with a rock, and then commenced to getting ready to eat it. And a guy came by and said, "Hey, give me that." And one of the instructors, and yeah, so one of the instructors caught me, and they weren't happy with me for that. But luckily they didn't drop me from training.
How do you go from 15 years old wanting to become a Navy SEAL, from that to eating a lizard, to eating a grasshopper? Like, for somebody that's never been through any of that, including myself, a lot of people thinking about eating a lizard or grasshopper or rattlesnake would just be completely blown away.
Yeah, they just haven't been hungry enough. It's that simple. Get hungry, and then any kind of ideas that you've got about whether or not you would eat something go out the window. And then, in SEER School, they teach you what's safe to eat and what isn't safe to eat when you're in the survival portion, and then you just start doing it. But it's a matter in this day and age where people just haven't gotten hungry enough. So, hey, I don't like sardines. Okay, you haven't been hungry enough. Like when I started doing keto and I did keto to lose a lot of weight. I didn't stay with it forever, but I ate a lot of sardines and it was boring. And here's the bottom line. Sardines are really good for you. As long as you're eating wild caught sardines, they are like the cheapest, most well-rounded food you can get. And I always thought it was kind of funny when people are like, oh, I can't eat those. It's like, well, bro, you just haven't been hungry enough.
Hunger can just change your complete mindset and flip you to almost of like a basic instinctual kind of creature.
You know what? It sheds you a lot of the crap that you're carrying around, and I recommend it highly. People, if you're not fasting right now, you should start experimenting with it, because the health effects of it are great, but then all your little finickiness is just that's just a weakness. Drop that and get hungry, see what it's like, and then we'll just harden you up a little bit. It's good.
Builds a little bit of character, you think?
Yes.
For you, doing a fast, was it a challenge at all, or did it kind of expose you to a side that you haven't seen in a while from fasting?
But before, I was really fat adapted, and I was eating a lot of carbs all the time, and if an incredible amount of sugar. Like if I went 6 hours without eating, I would get all shaky and grumpy and not function. And it always bugged me, because I thought, well, if I was back to being a hunter gatherer and I got hungry and now I can't perform, so if I failed at one hunt, I would be doomed, because I missed that meal and now I can't perform at my apex, and I'm not going to be able to do the ladder. So initially it was hard. It took me like a week or something to wean myself off carbs, and I went through that thing that they call keto flu. And then the fasting just becomes a mental exercise, and like your brain's telling you you're hungry, but you're not really hungry. It's just a lot of times you're just bored. Now, the longest fast I've done is 3 days. People have done longer than that. I think there's debate on whether the longer fasts are really healthy for you, unless you're just trying to. There's evidence, I think, that longer fast can reset some autoimmune issues that people have. But I've done 3-day fasts. The first day is typically the worst. After that, it's just boring. And then for a long time, I was doing a 36-hour fast every Monday. I've gotten away from that, and I need to get back to it. I just slipped. I've gotten weak, and I need to get back to just doing a whole day where I'm keeping my insulin levels low, just resetting. Because I'll tell you this, I've noticed that second morning, so I wake up after the second sleep of after fasting for the 36 hours, I feel like $1,000,000. And that next workout that I have is great. I've been tested. My testosterone levels have been up since I started a fasting regimen, and apparently your growth hormone levels go up as well. I don't know that for sure. I do know, because I've had the blood tests and everything done, that my test levels have gone up since I started fasting and cut a lot of the carbs and processed food out of my diet.
I think I talked about eating cleaner, basically just cutting out those sugars, those added sugars, and cutting out the processed foods, and trying to cut out as many packaged foods. Just eating the natural things that we as humans have eaten for thousands and thousands of years that have got us here, but now we're kind of just trying to switch everything up, and our bodies just aren't equipped to handle it the right way.
No, and people are looking for stuff if you buy it, and the thing is that it's convenient to get a microwave dinner or something, but what went into having something that has this shelf life that a microwave dinner's got, or any other packaged food? And there's a lot of stuff that probably isn't good for you. It's probably not good for you to have all the glyphosates, from the Roundup that they spray on everything. And it's in everything: wine, beer, breakfast cereal. It's all over the place. So, probably a good idea to limit your exposure to it.
In my head, it's okay to kind of say, hey, I've been working hard, hitting the gym, I've been eating my diet, and I'm going to enjoy this cookie or this whatever. I think that's okay. But I think when we take it to the extremes, I think that's where we have a lot of our obesity problems and our heart problems and just all the things, diabetes, that are just kind of causing this big, healthcare crisis right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's a spectrum. You got to have balance, because if you get too crazy with it, eventually you're just going to go and either quit super hard or, life's too short not to enjoy like a mint chocolate chip ice cream,
Exactly.
right? I'm just not going to do it every day.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to have dessert every day after dinner, but maybe once or twice a week. Sure. I'll see what's on the dessert menu.
Yeah, that's it. How do you find that balance now as far as, we talked about your diet a little bit, but what do you do to stay physically active now?
So Iris and my wife, will typically get up in the morning and we'll throw on a P90X video and do that together. And then we just go out and face the day. We live up in northeastern Washington. I'm basically kind of homesteading up here. So we're really physically active all day, whether it's like, digging holes, planting trees, moving hay around to feed the horses, working with the horses, hiking around up on the hills. I'm getting ready to come into hunting season, so now I'm up in the amount that I'm walking around and hiking and doing things on foot. So it's just generally trying to be active and not just sitting in one spot.
Finding what you like to do, because that's going to really be the thing that pushes you to make it a habit and make it a lifestyle, to where you're not just sitting. Being up is a very powerful thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are kind of stuck in the mindset that I have to go to the gym or I have to lift weights or do whatever. I have to go run. But like you just said, just finding something where you're getting up, you're being physically active throughout your day and making it part of your day is a really easy way to incorporate it into your life.
Like, training jiu-jitsu, doing a team sport, any of that stuff, when you throw that exercise with the aspect of play into it, it's really good for your brain. And it also, you're getting exercise, you're stealing exercise basically, because it doesn't feel like you're exercising when you're out playing, but you are. So that's huge. Unfortunately, in a COVID environment, we can't train jiu-jitsu anymore, but it's something that we did as a family. And so that's kind of out, not forever, but the problem is our gym is closed. And so, all those things, kill your TV, right? The two things to say about TV: start paying attention to how much you're looking at it. And like we don't have cable. We'll stream shows, and we don't watch almost any TV in the summertime because it's light and we're outside all day long. In the wintertime, when we slow down, and now we'll binge watch The Mandalorian or whatever. And by binge watch, 2 or 3 episodes at a time, but when we're inside and we're not outside. The other thing is be real careful on how much media that you're exposed to. And I'm talking about Fox News and CNN and everybody that's going to just try to press your buttons and tell you that the world's going to come to an end. It isn't coming to an end. Antifa isn't taking over the world any more than the white right-wing extremists are, okay? I have friends, it freaks them out, and and what are they doing? They're just pumping all kinds of cortisol into their system, which is your stress hormone. And what's that doing? Tanking the testosterone, tanking everything else. And it's problematic. It's not helpful. They'd be so much healthier and be able to get in better shape if they weren't focusing on all that negative stuff. I mean, you have to have some kind of recreation during your day. The point I was making earlier about television, I'm like, if you're spending 3 hours a day looking at the television every day, that's problematic. Get outside and do something.
Right.
But absolutely, you should have some recreation and just take a break and be able to, and enjoy stuff like TV.
So to kind of tie it all together, to close it up a little bit, just a final question, and we'll let you go. What do you do to kind of stay on top of your game? Do you read? Do you listen to audiobooks? What do you do to kind of stay up?
Because I'm so active and I'm driving all the time and on planes, Audible and podcasts are what I do. So I absorb tons and tons of podcasts. It's super helpful. Like if I'm out running the weed whacker for 2 hours, I'm listening to a podcast at the same time. If I'm splitting wood for 2 hours, I'm listening to a podcast or an Audible book. I'm going to throw 3 books out that I've taken in recently that I really enjoyed. Leadership Strategy and Tactics by Jocko was awesome. Never Split the Difference by Foss. Both those books I've read twice and have the hard copy so I can underline them. And then finally, Dare to Lead by Brene Bruce. Brown, dang it, is a book that I'm going through, and those are great. But yeah, it's mainly reading, because it's not until the winter time that I have the time to be able to read, really. So it's multitasking when I'm taking in stuff, and so then it's just listening to the podcasts and audiobooks.
Yeah, I think everybody should just find some method to just increase their knowledge on anything, because when you put something in your brain, you challenge it, it's gonna help you out, even if it's not, if you're in a certain field and you're not listening to something in that certain field, it's just gonna help your brain learn how to grow and learn how to take in knowledge. I think it's just really important that everybody does that.
Yeah, and so consider this, like Musashi, who was this legendary samurai, and some people say he wasn't a real person, but anyway, there's a book of 5 rings, and he said you're a better samurai if you're good at calligraphy. If getting good at the arts makes you a better samurai. So there's all these other things that it's not completely obvious that doing calligraphy would make you a better swordsman, but it does. And so those are good things where you just look at being a well-rounded person, and you should exercise all of these muscles that you have, not the least of which is your brain and your creativity.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. And I appreciate your time. If you just want to let people know where they can find you, how they can get in touch.
That's awesome. Thanks, Daniel. You can follow me on Instagram at jason.n.gardner, or if you're looking at having me come in, speak, and teach leadership to your organization, you can reach out to us at echelonfront.com, and there you go. Awesome. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your service. Thank you very much for that sacrifice.
Daniel, it was a privilege to serve. All right, brother. See ya.
Alrighty, that was the episode. That was an amazing episode. And I hope you listened all the way through, and if you're listening now, I'm assuming you did. You didn't just skip to the end, because that would be weird. But yeah, I hope you took something from that, and just all that wisdom, all that knowledge, experience, and just things that we can pull from and take out and use it in our life, and create a routine that is just built on these healthy habits and healthy lifestyle, as well as balance. I really do appreciate Jason Gardner for coming on. So we'll just do the normal thing as we end this episode. Find us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe there, rate us, review us. Find us on Spotify. You can follow us there. You can find us on YouTube. So look us up there, the Weight Room Podcast. And that's it. We're going to leave it there. Peace.